Next item on the agenda is, we want to just talk about this Siemens briefing, or are we going to reschedule this portion?
Well, Mr. President, there are a couple of options. We had anticipated having Siemens here to participate in this briefing, but they weren't able to be here. But we do have our staff who's prepared to give us updates.
Okay.
All right.
Ms. Powell? Mr. Smash?
Jerry Smash, Public Works. Just want to start off by saying, as far as the water infrastructure improvement program is going so far, we have to date 388 large meters. These are meters above 2 inches that have been installed. We also have 25,700 residential meters that are in the ground. So the total meters installed by percentage is about 40%. Total paid for that portion of the contract so far is $30,367,771. I'm sorry, $30,367,771. As far as the sewer rehabilitation work that has been done so far, we've got 17 of 19 projects that have been done. We've actually added 3 additional jobs to the total. Right now it's just Pearl Street and Waneland that are remaining to be done. Pearl Street was held off because we wanted to look at trying to do the water line as well as the sewer line in that area. And so now that we have everything together, we've submitted that, and we're getting ready to proceed with that. They'll be working on that probably starting the first part of next year. And they should be able to wrap those 2 up. So as you can tell, they're pretty much complete. We're looking at about 90% completion on all of the sewer work right now. As far as the water treatment plants, both O.B. Curtis and J.H. Fuel, we're looking at roughly 90% of those projects, if not more, done. One of the caveats to that is we're looking to work out a contract amendment to reduce the contract, the overall contract, by $1.1 million, because we've seen some other items that we'd like to get done for the water treatment plant, specifically O.B. Curtis, that would help move us a lot farther along the way. So we've already worked on that. We've talked to bond counsel about, the possibility of doing it. They were okay with it. We've already approached MDA with it on a preliminary basis. They're okay with it as well. It does not materially impact the revenue that we're looking for, but this is a part of additional O&M savings that we were going to obtain by doing these things. We figure we will be able to keep the plant online and more functional by doing these additional items, and that's why we're looking to do that part of it. Any questions on that part? I have a little bit more, but if you guys want to jump in, feel free.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. As far as the billing system is concerned, so far the city has paid out about $8.7 million for this aspect of it, and we're very close as far as the overall programming and design of the billing system to being in place. So that's kind of where we are from just a highlight of the updates. In terms of issues, we do have some issues.
Let me ask one quick question.
Go ahead.
What percentage is 8.7 million of that, of the entire project with billing?
I'm sorry?
What percentage is 8.7 million
of the
on
billing?
The billing system?
It is roughly 70%.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry, I hadn't actually calculated that particular number, but I mean, I can get you detail.
Close, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, as far as the issues, Director Powell has looked at several things that we would obviously have liked to have seen in the original contract that are not there, specifically milestones. So we have communicated those to Siemens. We're looking at this point, recognizing the amount of revenue that we have to be gained by getting additional meters in the ground. Obviously the faster they're in, the better we are from an accuracy standpoint. So we're pushing to get milestones from them on when they can have basically the job complete, which, if they can step it up in phases, but to to give us the specifics in terms of when they think they'll be done. And again, all of the steps along the way to get that. Another one of the issues that we're really looking at, and this is kind of a part of it, and again, under Director Powell, we've had a pretty good bit of success in getting, cooperation from some of the things that have been long-standing issues for us. But we have obviously some high bills. There are, questions. I'm sure you guys are getting calls. A lot of folks have been getting calls and questions, and our WSBA is doing a pretty good job of answering and doing investigation. And I think, as we've talked about in the past, if there's something out of the ordinary, we'll certainly take a look at it. So at this point, though, we're looking into trying to get some verification and confirmation on some of the stuff that's going in the ground, making sure that we've got everything is calibrated properly, coming from the factory as it should. But we do have some questions. So a lot of the questions we're trying to feed back to Siemens and to their subcontractors to make sure that we have a good feeling about what's going on. We also have, along the kind of similar line, we're looking at the QA/QC process and really where that's coming from, because obviously, again, we've had a lot of participation from the public on issues that they're seeing or things that they may not have liked, but at the same time, that team is doing what it can to try to get caught up with the sheer volume of meters that's going in the ground to make sure that they're getting everything done. There has been some question marks about that because, as you guys know, in the first quadrant, which basically covers Ward 1, parts of Ward 7, I think, was affected as well. But at any rate, we did have some issues, and these are obvious hiccups when you're starting the project, especially considering some of the things that we have to deal with. Nonetheless, our expectation is that the customers are satisfied. So we've made those points, and it looks like they are listening to us. But again, we're going to wait until we get everything before us before we jump to that conclusion or reach that conclusion.
Let me just chime in for a question, Ms. Barrett.
I want to go back to the verification of the work and all. If I'm understanding correctly, this is exactly what we talked about at the last council meeting, maybe it was the week before last, about looking at the work that has been completed in a certain area, going back there. Mr. Tillman, we talked at length about this, going back and using that as an example of how we are doing and how our subcontractors and all are doing. And we were told, if I understood correctly, that really wasn't going to work. But it seemed to me very reasonable that you would take a portion of this city that has been worked on just to see how we're doing before we finish and have a huge situation.
Well,
so we are going to do that now?
I don't, Keisha Powell, Department of Public Works, I don't believe I said we wouldn't be able to do that. We're trying to find the best way to do that. What we're able to see now is Raftellus, the contractor that is assisting us with billing and reviewing this contract, they've been able to take all of our billing data and put it into an Oracle-based system to do some bulk analytics. From that, they gave me a report on Friday, which we're still vetting, that shows all of the meters that have been changed out. And there was a significant peak in installations in one part of the year, the early part of the year. Based on the process that they have for QA/QC and reviewing their work, evaluating the installations, they described a process that should take about 2 weeks. They are probably a year behind or several months behind QA/QC of many installations. So we've asked them to, one, provide us their workflow process for QA/QC, and two, we're talking to them about how they will make up time in evaluating these instances. We also have an issues list that they're working through. we're evaluating how quickly they can get through that list. We asked them to provide us basically a corrective action plan to address these issues. So it will be done.
I think the issue was, though, we're letting them tell us what they're doing, and are we going behind them to see if that's actually occurring?
We are now telling them what we want them to do. We do have someone in the field that is going behind and checking locations. We didn't have under contract someone to specifically do that for every installation.
Yeah, that's what I thought you'd say.
Yes.
And that
The city did not have a program manager to act on the city's behalf to do that, but we have a resource that is doing some spot checks in addition to the QA/QC that their team is supposed to do.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Powell, my question is in relation to billing. Our original takeover date was supposed to be, when was that supposed to happen?
It was supposed to be the January 15th for the billing system.
So do we have to wait for the installation to be complete before we take over the billing side, or are those processes two separate pieces that we're acquiring?
They're two separate pieces. They've been working in tandem. The goal was to get the billing system up and running, but because it has absorbed a lot of our internal resources, which has made it difficult for us to be as responsive to our customers as we need to be, and several things are not in place to go live with the billing system. That system is going to be delayed. We'll be working with the team to establish the best go-live date for the billing system, given the fact that there are some issues with what they are asking us to do in order for that system to go live. And, we've talked about, I think there is a suggestion that we would have to move to monthly, monthly billing? Which would mean that meters would have to be read more often, which would mean that we would have to actually have additional meter reading resources, which would impact the performance guarantee and revenue savings, or savings, operational savings. So those are things that don't quite make sense to us, and we're putting things in the proper perspective and looking at what we believe would allow this deployment to be more successful. The other issue is we would go live with a billing system that has meter data from automated meters as well as our existing meters. So there would be a mix of data, and that could present some potential problems.
Right. Could we, kind of following up with Ms. Barrett-Simone's, Councilor Barrett-Simone's question, could we take the data from the meters that have been installed and then take the data from, say, last year of those same areas and monitor usage? Because there should be a correlation.
That is what we're able to do now, because Siemens has pulled the data into a tool that allows them to now analyze it. So,
and that's the report y'all still vetting?
That is some of the things that they went through with me on Friday. And so we'll be able to provide an update on all of their tasks as well, and the data analysis that they're able to do. So they've started with kind of bulk data analytics, and we have another part of that team that is doing more forensic account analysis to look at some of the issues that we've seen, meters with the meter data and billing.
Do you foresee the city incurring any unexpected costs with this contract?
It's possible. It's possible. There was some suggestions. There's been suggestions along the way that the city expend more money than it was expected. With the billing system in particular, it was suggested that the city make some software purchases. And I think Mr. Smash has done a good job at really looking at the contract with our legal folks and making sure that we're not purchasing anything that we don't have to or that was not anticipated.
Because in a deal like this, with so many moving parts, we definitely need stewardship all the way around.
Right.
Okay. Any further questions? Mr. Mayor? Councilman Hendricks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have we received anything from Raf Tellis yet? Anything substantive on the Siemens contract?
We've received a report today with some of the analysis that they've been able to complete, and I've also received some updates on some of the other tasks that they've been working on. So it is possible that we could provide an update on that particular engagement. Of late, they were able to assist us in pulling together information to send to Moody's for our bond rating review.
Okay, great, thank you. You'll update us on that later on, right?
Yes, whenever
great.
you're.
Awesome,
Yeah.
thank you.
Councilman Tillman?
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Powell, you mentioned, we're all aware, we didn't have a program manager or project manager on the city side, and you're taking the steps to put somebody out in the field to monitor. Now, on Siemens side, they have a project manager, right?
Correct.
Is that person in the field daily, looking at all the activities as far as installation and going over to the billing on side, making sure that he monitor that and feed that information to us, the city, and to their headquarters or whoever that he or she is responsible to. And how often do they meet with you?
Well, they actually meet with Mr. Smash, because he's still the program manager, but they do have someone that is doing QA/QC. Is a rather large team. They've expressed the process. We've asked for that process in writing so we can see exactly where there's some breakdowns occurring. It's clear that they are behind in terms of their QA/QC effort. I think the last meeting that I attended was last week or week before last. They described a QA/QC process that should basically lag installations by at most 2 weeks, and in many cases, there are some installations that have yet to be reviewed.
Okay, Mr. Smash, you are field Joan. So you were out there monitoring and taking notes, raising issues with Siemens project manager. What kind of response are you getting back? Are they very cooperative? Are you having some problems? Because your job to make sure the city, at the end of this project, and at the time it's handed over to the city, Siemens has really done what they're supposed to do. That's your charge. Am I right or wrong?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's how I really approached the whole project. I mean, from the beginning, we knew that there were things in the contract that we couldn't work with, but we were forced to kind of do that. And as much as possible, we've tried to make some choices to protect our interests as much as we can. So that's why we haven't had a strong resource in the field in terms of number, but we have always had someone to have eyes on what's going in the ground. It's just the problem that if you have so many meters, you can't even spot check as many of them if you have limited resources. But what has happened again, the citizens have kind of aided that, because some of the issues that they have found, they bring to our attention, and they kind of help with that. And as they do, our staff has been set up to go ahead and investigate, address what we can. We approach Siemens with it. We have approached the subcontractors with it to the project as well. And, we try to get as much cooperation from that as we can. I think as we have completed jobs, especially as far along as we've gotten with the sewer projects, actually having the utilities manager to be able to inspect each of those jobs as it's done to make sure that stuff has been done satisfactorily. Same thing we've done with the water treatment plants. All the work that has been done there, we have a superintendent that's looked at everything to make sure that it's done in accordance. So the meter aspect was the only part that we really were lagging the resources to go through and do, the audits to the level that we would like to. However, again, most of the stuff has come to light that we are, needing to see, obviously, to make sure that the job is successful, because everybody involved in this recognizes that, our revenue is at stake, and we're in a situation where everyone associated with the project will be held accountable, regardless, because Siemens does have, because this was a performance contract, and that's the method used to do it. They are definitely on the hook to make sure it works, because they have, payouts if we're short in the revenues that were projected.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we've done. But yes, we've seen a number of issues. We've, obviously I've been before you, the council body several times with issues and with reports, and it hasn't always been pretty. And we just continue to work through it to try to get it to the best possible resolution, which means that the city will get the revenue that it needs so that it can move forward with, limited issues.
Mm-hmm. Now, as council person members, we get a lot of the calls from our constituents, and we pass it on. And we also tell them to call 311 Public Works. Now, the building system seems to be the big issue right now, from what I can understand. Out of reading of the meters or what have you. Now, that's the thing that really going to have to be fine-tuned. We're going to have a lot of problems when the citizens really get involved. And we don't want that to happen, if possible. Mm-hmm. So these large bills, when that hit anybody, they're gonna make phone calls. Right. So back to what me and Mr. Moon talked about, we got a good chance in the Eastover where they started to really kind of work through these things, have a good idea how things working, not working, what are the big issues, and by the time you get to Ward 5, everything ought to run smooth. I won't receive any calls.
Method of the madness, right?
I do have one last question, Mr. Smash. What, how far are we at training our personnel to be ready to accept this billing system?
Well, right now for the billing system, we've had a good bit of training already. There's user acceptance testing that's been going on for some time out at WSBA, and it's allowing the personnel that will interact, especially the supervisors, to have a lot of time in. The supervisors have had more time in. I think I was told by the manager out there that it's been about 2 months worth of training. And we'll see that some of the other staff will get additional training, but obviously having the supervisors get a heads up on the training, they should be prepared to use the system properly when it finally does go live.
Okay. Yeah. Any further questions on Siemens? Mr. Vice President?
The last time we were talking about the Siemens contract, we brought up the example of people with estimated bills. Is that correct? What are we doing with the people that are falling in that boat?
What we're doing as far as when we have to make estimations is the billing supervisor looks at the historical usage. And there are some cases where some of the meters have been stuck on one and they haven't read it all. And so in that case, we have to make an estimation, and it's been based on historical usage. Now that we have all of the data pulled into a tool that we can start analyzing that data, they'll be able to see, that's the next part of the next steps of what they're looking at. They're looking at those accounts where we have had to make estimations, looking at the issues with the meters, and those are locations that we're asking Siemens to address first. They'll have to go back and pull some of the meters out of the ground, replace them. We'll be asking for some meters to be tested as well.
In terms of actual numbers, how many people are we talking about?
We don't have a number as yet.
What's this? Do you have any estimate as to the scale of this issue?
No.
Okay. So help me understand what. It's my understanding that. So what was going on is that these people, you were just estimating their bill, and people weren't actually looking at any metered use. Is that accurate?
There has been actual usage. When the meter was changed out and there was an issue, if there was an issue, and there had to be a bill estimation, it's been based on their historical usage, basically their historical consumption. And they've looked at the range of consumption for over a long period of time. Now, I will say that estimating a bill is not a new occurrence. It happens everywhere. Sometimes you can't get a meter read if a meter is inaccessible. And so you may estimate, and then when you go back, the next time you have you're able to get the meter read, you look to see if it's in line with the consumption before and after. What we've talked about is being a bit more proactive in sending out letters to folks if we are not able to access their meter, to make it clear to folks that it's their responsibility to make sure that meters are accessible in those cases where that's just a usual occurrence in business. But as far as any estimations we've had to make due to the meter issue or the change-out issue, we're trying to get a handle on the magnitude of that.
Okay. I think at one of our prior discussions about the Siemens contract, we discussed that there were a couple of policy decisions that had to be made, such as if someone damaged their meter. Have we made any progress about that, or where do we stand on that?
We haven't made a policy decision on that. Right now, we're trying to get where our focus has been on trying to get the data accurate so that we make sure that we get the bills under control, the billings under control.
How is the installation of the wireless network going?
It's going fine. We hadn't had any issues. They've been able to. Obviously, the Entergy agreement, I think, was the last time we were before you, regarding that. So far, that seems to be working out well.
There's no questions.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question? Earlier, when we were talking about the billing system at 70% complete and a January 15th completion date, is that a possibility?
At this point, we're probably going to have a little more time for that, basically, because I think that was one of the other things that I had because of resource challenges. I mean, there are some requirements that we've been asked for that we really have not made decisions on, and really for good reason. So we do want to make sure that when we actually go live, we're prepared to accept the system and use it properly.
All right, then the next question is, Siemens was supposed to be here today, as I understand, and heard last week that they were not able to meet with us for several weeks. Is that right?
That's correct.
And when would that be?
The earliest will be December 8th.
Okay, but we don't have a confirmed date on that.
I mean, we can go on record because they've been told to prepare for that as the earliest date.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And could we get a copy of the report that you used today?
Sure.
Thank
Certainly.
you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Councilman Tillman.
When I kind of heard that statement that they couldn't meet with us for a period of time, and when they were getting their contract, they were down here every council meeting.
Every day. I think for a 90...
I observe things pretty well.
Right.
Then they brought all the subcontractors and everything.
Oh,
the whole building.
couldn't find a seat up in here.
You would think at a $90 million contract they could have gotten here, but I guess that's another story.
That sounds like one for our newspaper journalists out there to write. Why would they meet with us? So let me ask one last question. In looking at estimations of bills, could we also use? Don't they have like substations on blocks where you could chart the amount of usage for an entire street, and then you could cancel out what each meter has used on that street to show what's not been used on that one meter that hadn't been read properly? So we wouldn't have to get an estimation. We could know, like, from this substation, there were, 40 meters that were.
Well, I don't know that that would be fair because it wouldn't be. There is a significant amount of water loss from the system, and so we have 40% water loss. So if you try to, I don't think that would be a fair way to estimate somebody's bill.
I'll let the experts figure it out.
I think the fairest way, and this is done everywhere, is to use the typical consumption that you would see for that customer.
Right now, regardless of what issues come up, since it hadn't been turned over to the city, they are the go-to person to maintain or make whatever correction, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Any further questions or comments on Siemens? Okay. Well, thanks a lot for your time.